polytheist, secular Christian, black, conservative, Christian, positive Hindu, Buddhist, ignorant, Taoist, smart, pan-humanist, Republican, lower middle, leftist, demi-introverted. Yeah, there are so many labels out there, it makes my head spin. I have struggled a lot over the years with whether or not I like labels. Sometimes it's difficult to determine whether or not one applies to me. Do I have to adopt a label if it does apply to me? And what are the pros and cons of adopting a label? What if I don't want to accept it? What if someone else is assigning that label to me? Do I want to take on that label? Do I have to? As you may have guessed, my topic today is labels. But before you sit back and get too comfy, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Okay, cue intro. Hello everyone, and welcome to Unapologetically Me. I am Laura, and today I'm going to talk about labels. But first, a little background on why. I did my first podcast interview the other day. It was on a podcast called Elmo's World, where Elmo interviews people from different walks of life to find out what their philosophies are and to challenge them and discuss with them all their beliefs. So during the interview, as he was asking questions, I picked up on three very common themes: atheism, agnosticism, and humanism. During the podcast, I didn't really pick up on why. Why did he go from asking me about atheism to backing up and then asking me about agnosticism specifically? Agnosticism. Why that topic? Later, I went to listen to the show, and I realized I introduced myself as an atheist, an agnostic, and a humanist. I had self-labeled, and I hadn't even thought about it. Each of those labels are really, really new ones to me. They may have applied for quite some time, but I'm only recently associating myself with them. Along with discovering in the first few minutes of the podcast how I had introduced myself, I realized that how I had labeled myself set the tone for the entire interview. So, as I have done in the past, I am going to start off the discussion with a definition, or at least an explanation of what a label is. A label is a term that we apply to ourselves and to others that is designed to give information about the individual, defining a feature, a characteristic, an attitude, etc., etc., etc. Labels are used in groups, societies, and cultures to help us quickly identify certain features and gain quick knowledge about a person with less of a need for explanation. If you've never seen me before, but someone tells you that I am a white, female, secular humanist, that tells you a lot about me right off the bat. If I tell you that I'm a geek and a bookworm, you can make some pretty big assumptions about me that are probably true. You could say, for example, "You know what I can get her? That new Brandon Sanderson book." And you'd be correct. If I told you that I was vanilla, that might say something about me. But if I told you I was kinky, that would open up a whole can of worms of questions, wouldn't it? Ooh, what kind of kinks? Leather, horseplay, puppy play, bondage, rope play, feet? Come on, what? Oh, my Lanta. I know what you're thinking. But that label didn't answer any questions. I know, but it sure made you think of a few that you would not have even thought to ask. And it might even keep you wondering. Okay, so I'm sure what you really need right now is a palate cleanser. So think about a label that applies to you. Maybe it's a religious label, or political, or social. Maybe it's connected to how you look, where you come from, how you feel. Maybe it's a label designed to explain an internal condition. Who gave you that label? Was it you, or was it someone else? How do you feel about that label? How do you associate with it? Does it make you feel all warm and fuzzy, apprehensive, angry? Have you ever switched from one label to another? I have had so many different labels in my life that I have lost track. But here are just a few. Growing up, I would have called myself a Republican. Nay, I would have called myself a conservative Republican. I thought right wing meant right, like correct. I gave myself that label, or so I thought, and proudly. If asked about my religion, I would have said at that time that I was agnostic. I was given other labels too: ginger, freckle face, tomboy, goody two shoes, masculine, feminine, outgoing, shy, geek, and nerd, which, like any balanced diet, was rounded out with dork. I didn't choose these labels, they were all chosen for me, assigned to me by my peers. Sometimes I loved them, sometimes I hated them, oftentimes I was ambivalent to them. Nevertheless, they both defined who I was, and in some cases, dictated who I was. When I left religion, I was so sick of labeling myself as Christian or Muslim, Republican or Democrat, or anything that brought with it anything other than who I actually was. I wanted to free myself from the chains of expectation and the weaponized stereotypes that come with social labels. So, for just a little while, I left them behind. It was only in the last few months that I decided to adopt labels like humanist or atheist, despite them having been quite accurate descriptors for a good couple of years. Okay, so far I've been pretty ambiguous about whether or not labels are bad or good. So let's explore. As I've already hinted, one upside is that they can convey complex information in just a few words. Middle-aged, cis, pansexual, male. White, conservative, Republican, Christian. Wealthy, debutante, divorcee. Or, my favorite, sapiosexual, skeptical, science, geek, Trekkie. Labeling can also be good because it helps us to find or form groups of like-minded individuals. Groups like religious churches, political organizations, or communities such as the LGBTQ+ that grow around certain human traits or attributes draw people to them because of their common labels. If you are, for example, a polyamorous vegan looking for like-minded individuals, the use of either or both of those labels will help you seek them out. But, as with most human cultural conventions, labels have a downside. Labeling results in stereotypes, slurs, reinforcements of tribal behaviors, justification for the mistreatment of others, exclusion, depression, even persecution, torture, and death. In other words, labels are a big fucking deal. So you can imagine the conversation around them is actually a pretty important one. There are also psychological ramifications. Labeling can change or reinforce behaviors. According to labeling theory, when an individual is given a label, they begin to take on the characteristics that are associated with it. Wait, how is this a bad thing? Well, consider labels like stupid, worthless, careless, troublemaker, loser, wimp, dumbass, deviant. Wait, let's stop right there with deviant. Studies done on labeling theory have shown that labeling someone as a deviant or a criminal will increase the behaviors that are associated with those labels. This social labeling theory was played out in a remarkable way in an elementary classroom in 1968 when Jane Elliot sought to teach her children about discrimination. She gave all the blue-eyed children labels such as smart, neat, and nice, and all the brown-eyed children opposing labels, and had them wear collars around their neck. The next day, the roles were reversed. Those very same days, the children who once got along and judged each other at least a little more fairly began acting out their roles and treating each other with different behaviors according to each eye color. What's even more shocking, the ones who were told they were smart made better grades on their tests, while the ones who were told they were stupid did worse. In 2 days. In other words, they embraced the labels instantly. The upside, according to this article, is that we can use this to our advantage. Labeling yourself a strong, successful businesswoman increases the likelihood of you taking on the behavior of one and therefore becoming one. Think of it as like a circular, self-fulfilling prophecy. It's also a really useful tool to get someone from where they are to where they want to be. Okay, so labels can be good, bad, or ugly. How do we know when we should or shouldn't adopt a label? The upside is that you might gain that sense of belonging and community. You may feel a great sense of relief that you are able to outwardly express your inward thoughts. You may even be able to be a part of a movement and raise awareness about the particular issues associated with your label. You can seek out help, companionship, maybe even much needed support and services. But you also open yourself up to the possibility of harassment, It's possible people will question why you associate with that label, or they will treat you differently based off of it. I think that it's important to allow people the freedom and the space to choose their labels and how they want to associate with that label. They might not technically believe in a God, but don't want to associate with the atheist label. I respect that. Or someone might be gay or trans and might not be ready to identify as such in social contexts. This is critically important to respect as well. People might be more comfortable using labels in one context, but not in another. For example, they might tell a friend something about themselves, but aren't ready to let everybody else know. There is no hard, fast rule that says once a label applies to you, you must go announce it to the world. Society is going to be throwing its own labels at us left and right. We can't always stop others from deciding how or when they're going to apply labels to us. But we can choose how and when we apply labels to ourselves. We can also choose not to follow suit and treat others in that same way. We can be flexible, understanding, and respectful of other people's chosen labels on purpose. To round out this video, let's get back to me. Post-Religious Odyssey, I was very wary about associating myself with a label that I may be called upon to defend, even if I don't associate with that particular questionable stereotype. I was also wary of thinking that I was something, but then through exploration and learning, discovering I'm actually something else. I'm a very fluid person. My opinions and beliefs change with the information that I'm presented. I have my core values, but the rest of me revolves around them like electrons around a nucleus of an atom, unpredictable in how I'm going to present myself at any given moment, but I'm consistent in my overall makeup. I was tired of tucking my tail between my legs and saying, whoops, changed my mind again. Sorry, now I'm this. As long as I didn't settle on any label, I really had nothing to worry about. I could explore beliefs, philosophies, and sciences on a whim, learning about Buddhism, for example, without becoming a Buddhist. But nevertheless, I found myself naturally gravitating towards several labels as I learned more and more about them and began to associate myself with the corresponding groups. So I found a purpose in using labels after all. And for now, I'm okay with that. I had identified myself as humanist, but I have since learned that there are so many more ist labels out there that resonate with me, at least in bits and pieces. So who knows how I will choose to identify myself down the road. For now, what is important to me is how I approach the world, how I treat others, how I choose to live my life. What matters to me is how I understand a given label, or being aware of how I label others, and respecting labels that people give themselves and how they want to use them. So, hey, what are your opinions on labels? What are your experiences with them? Leave your 2 cents in the comment section below. Until next time, remember to ask questions, stay curious, and challenge your beliefs. Truth stands up to scrutiny, and changing your mind doesn't make you a bad person. Thanks for watching. Bye!